You're someone who studied centuries of financial crashes, wars, and pandemics. Today, we're clearly in a crisis related to weaponization of trade and natural resources. How do you think we will emerge out of this?
Well, I'm reminded of a British Prime Minister in the 1970s, James Callaghan, who generated the memorable headline, "Crisis? What crisis?" After all, if one looks at the growth in the global economy, it's not exactly bad. India is powering ahead with growth forecast above 6%. The US economy is reaching new highs. The Indian stock market is not too far behind the US stock market. If this is a crisis, it's really not too bad, certainly by comparison with some of the crises we've seen in the past. But I think your question has to do with a crisis of international order. That, I think, one could certainly say exists, partly because of the re-election of President Donald Trump and his resumption of a trade war, not only against China, but against almost all US trade partners. But I think also because China has pursued a pretty aggressive industrial policy over the last decade or so, and that has created a great deal of stress and strain for other economies. So I think the crisis that we see today isn't an economic crisis, it isn't a financial crisis. Of course, it's not a public health crisis like the one we saw 5 years ago. It's a crisis of international order. And I would say that by comparison with the crises of the international system of the 20th century, it's still a manageable one because it's a crisis that's focused on tariffs and export controls, not a crisis that takes the form of large-scale military action, with the obvious exceptions of the conflicts we've seen in Ukraine and in the Middle East in the past few years.